Yo guys, my name's Chris. I'm one of the pastors here at Bethel, and we're so glad that you came out to our Warrior Men's Night tonight. Right now, I have Mark Mangano with me. Mark has an absolutely amazing story. He's been a good friend of mine for the last few months. He's been attending Bethel for over a year, but since this guy's given his life to Jesus, I've gotten to hear just amazing, beautiful stories about where he was and how far God's taken him. Mark got involved in two of the most significant motorcycle clubs here in Philadelphia, led a life involved in organized crime, and did a lot of things he's not proud of. And guys, you listen to a story that involves trauma, addiction, just a life of some real serious violence, and then to see how far this guy's come, I believe you're gonna be inspired tonight. So Mark, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me about what it was like to grow up. You grew up in Southwest Philly, is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in Southwest Philly. I grew up with my mom and my one sister at the time. I had no father, never met him. Then my little sister came along and, so it was just me and my two sisters and my mom.
There's one story I would love for you to share with these guys, and I know it's representative, but it's just one moment in your life. But you shared a story about when you were about 8 years old and you were home alone. But you told me the story in the context of violence and kind of your earliest memories and fighting for yourself and fighting for other people, kind of for survival. So tell me about that experience at your home in Southwest Philly.
I was about 8, and me and my sister were home, and there was somebody watching us. I can't even remember who it was. I know it was a guy.
Yeah.
And he was touching my sister inappropriately, and she didn't like it. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go in the kitchen. I grabbed a knife, and as I grabbed the knife and I was going to walk back, my mind said to me, I have to plunge this through his back to stop him from hurting my sister. And just as that happened, as I was walking back, my mom came in the door because we lived on the second floor, and there was quite a few incidents like that.
When you had this just one of many pretty traumatic experiences with your sister, being assaulted, and you're trying to intervene as an 8-year-old brother.
Yeah.
Between that time and the age of 18, you had developed a serious addiction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And when did those tendencies towards addiction start? Do you remember how young you were?
My first introduction to alcohol was a Schlitz, and I stole it from the refrigerator.
I know Schlitz, yeah.
And I remember taking a couple sips, and I remember that feeling of what it made me feel like, because at that young age, I felt dumb.
Yeah.
I flunked 3rd grade.
Right.
I just felt dirty. But at 8 years old, you're not going to pick up an addiction.
Right.
So really, it started around 11.
Okay. So by 11 years old, talk to me about what you remember as an 11, 12-year-old drinking.
As an 11-year-old, I got introduced to Acapulco Gold, which was marijuana.
Okay.
And the first time I smoked it, I fell in love. And then from there on, anything that I tried or did, I loved. It was full speed ahead.
Yeah.
And my addiction just took off up until, 1980.
Yeah. So it really devastated your early life in many ways. That addiction really did some serious damage for quite a while until you got clean at 18.
At about 7, almost 18. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was almost 18.
So from 18 to your early 20s, maybe early 30s, you're living this life. You're hurt. You're sober, but you're hurt. You're hurting people emotionally. Eventually, we'll talk about some things that actually put people in physical danger. Tell us about the clubs you were involved in, because one of the compelling parts of your story that I want you to share with our guys.
I'm about probably 15 years sober, and literally I really didn't work. I gambled. You know what I mean? And my uncle was involved back in Southwest Philly days with motorcycles and stuff like
Yep.
that. And at 15 years sober, I, as a little kid, I can remember thinking that's something I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
this was this the 90s or early 2000s, Mark?
90s.
Yeah.
Middle 90s up until the middle
Okay.
2000s.
So there was a lot of activity going on in the Philadelphia area with some of these clubs, other organizations,
absolutely,
and a lot of it wasn't. It's not just bikes. It involves a whole lot more stuff, darker stuff, right?
Sure.
So what was it like? What was it like being in that club lifestyle?
Well, I'm young. I'm not doing the right thing, and for me, it was more. I guess today I look back on it as more of an ego thing than anything.
Yeah.
But it was. It looked all rosy from the outside, but once you were on the inside, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. I remember I first got my patch, and I went into church at St. Dominic's, and I said to God, God, please keep me safe, keep me out of jail, and I promise you I will be good to all your people, children, old people, women, animals, and then I'll be bad to all bad people.
Right.
And that at that time, my mind said it was okay to do that.
Right.
Like as long as they weren't God's people, I was okay to do whatever I did.
Bad guys can hurt bad guys.
Right. And I mean, that was just the mindset that I have. Today, I know that that's just so insane.
Right. It's definitely not God's way, and it's not the way of Christ. But you had this warped thinking that hey, if that dude's a bad dude or he's involved in criminal activity, what's the big deal if I hurt him?
Right.
As long as this religion, so to speak, that you had at that time was, I'm not going to hurt good people.
Yeah.
But I can hurt bad people, and God, we're okay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how whacked is that?
Right.
But I've been there in different ways. Yeah.
It's. To me, it's okay. We have a saying, and the abnormal becomes normal. I remember in the beginning, somebody got beat up.
Yeah.
And on the way home, I'm coming down 95, and I'm right at Penn's Landing. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm actually praying for the guy. I'm like, God, I hope he's okay, blah, blah, blah. But as time went on, I didn't even care no more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and that might have been because I didn't think the guy deserved what he got, but whatever.
Right, but there's value for human life that we ought to have, right? And now, as a follower of Jesus,
right?
I mean, it doesn't matter if they're not family, not friends,
right.
Even if they're not a really good person. Sometimes,
I mean,
they have value.
Right, everybody's God's children.
Yeah.
And that's, I look at it today.
Yeah. You eventually became the vice president at both clubs that you were involved in, a number 2 guy at each of these clubs. You were pretty well known. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's just something that happens, you know what I mean? Like when I got involved with the clubs, I didn't really want any kind of position.
Yeah.
Because to me, I didn't need a position to speak my mind or tell them how I feel or something like that. You had to be careful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I imagine you had to be good at what you were doing to get asked,
Well, trust it, whatever the case may be. Absolutely.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think more of it's a lot of trust in that world. You're like, like I said, when I was in it, I was in it. And if I would have got life, I would have done life.
Right.
My mindset was that, and that was it.
You were sold out. You were sold out to these clubs.
Absolutely.
At some point, it sounded like there was, a difference of opinion or a dispute.
Yeah,
and you ended up going to another large club.
There was stuff it was treachery.
Mm-hmm.
There was See, the reason why I didn't want no power is because when you were in power, somebody was always trying to steal the power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't need any of that headache, and I don't want it.
Right.
So that's kind of what caused the demise of whatever I might have done.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because to me, I always pride myself then on being a loyal person.
Yeah.
So whoever I was with, that's who I stuck by.
Right.
And that's what you're taught anyway. You know what I mean? So to me, I was doing the right thing.
Yeah. Tell me about Mark. Tell me about you're the number 2 guy at that large club. The next. How did you get out of that lifestyle?
Well, I mean, I didn't want to get out. Things transpired, and now I know, and I look back on it, God pushed me out. God pushed me out because at the time I didn't want to get out. It was my mindset.
Yeah.
Stuff wasn't happening. And it was actually some of the people that I was around, that not all of them that I trusted in Philly, that kind of put me in what we call a trick bag. And they kind of like threw me out.
Okay.
And I was okay with it.
Okay.
I just realized it wasn't all what it was cracked up to be. Again, it's not, for me, it's not normal.
Sure.
God
was saving you. You didn't know it back then, but God was literally saving you from something.
Right.
You could have ended up in a box.
Absolutely.
You could have ended up in federal prison for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that could have happened.
Absolutely.
God had you get, get tossed out, and it saved your life.
Absolutely. If you look at it, even if you look at like, you watch The Sopranos or you watch Sons of Anarchy, like if you really watch the show, people love it.
Yeah.
But what happens at the end?
Right.
It's always turmoil,
death,
chaos, death.
Prison.
Families are being broken up. Kids are being hurt. Wives, fathers, just everything.
Yeah.
It's nothing but turmoil. Why, right? Why in our right minds will we want that?
Right. So, Mark, how exactly did you get to Bethel for the first time?
A friend of mine, she comes here and she asked me, would I like to check it out? And I said, yeah, sure. The first time I came, she likes to sit up front, so we sat up front. And even then, like, I got emotional. I seen the band and singing and praising. And that's what started me coming. It was a friend of mine who brought me. I always used to think like God was a punishing God, and that he wouldn't forgive me for the things I did, or with my children, or some of the stuff that I did. But today I know that's not true.
Part of what nudged you, the nudge that God used to bring you to that place of total surrender, was a medical situation that you became aware of in the fall. And I remember very particularly when you called me and let me know that there was something you wanted to talk to me about. There was something going on with you that was serious. And why don't you tell the guys, tell the men here tonight, what you found out and what was going on?
Well, back in April, almost last April, they found a 3-centimeter tumor in my left kidney. They said to me, listen, you're going to be fine. We'll take it out. It's not going to affect the longevity of your life. Yeah. We'll pop it out. No, you don't need no treatments after that. No big deal. Right. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. I said, no problem. So I had the surgery done in April. And, my first checkup was 6 months later. And I had the CAT scan done. And when I went back, I met with an oncologist, and he said, you have a cancer that's not curable. It's only treatable. And right away, I think about my kids.
Yeah.
I think about my daughters, and then I thought about my son, who I never met, and I was like, what are you talking about? like it floored me. I'm like, you know, and I knew like right away, I'm like, God, just, you got to be here with me. I thought to myself, I said to the devil, I said, you know what? I am not turning my back on God. So don't think I'm going to get mad at God that why did you do this to me?
Amen. Amen.
So no matter what you try to do, I'm staying with my God,
Amen. Amen.
you know?
Yeah, you know, we
So,
talk all the time, Mark. The enemy's coming after you. He's not going to stop. But our God is so much bigger than that enemy, and He has a plan for you. We're going to commit to walk by faith, not by sight, right? And
Right.
so you got a great report from your doctor today.
Yeah.
But regardless of any report that comes in,
Yeah.
we're not listening. We're listening to God.
Yeah.
And God has a plan for your life. He's got a plan for good and not for disaster. He's got a plan for your 4 girls.
Yeah.
And I believe He's already broken the cycle of sin for your daughters and for the son that doesn't really have a relationship with you yet.
Yeah.
And so we're believing great things for you and your family. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Love you, Mark.
Love you too.